So, welcome to this panel discussion on harmonization and reliance. We have on the panel 5 very experienced GMP regulators, and all of them have been involved in some way with PICS. Four of the panelists have already been introduced, so I won't introduce them again. But we are joined by Chong Hock Sia, who I always call Sia or Mr. Sia. He's very well known to all the Singapore audience, and he's a very strong supporter of ISPE Singapore. Sia is currently the Director QA and Senior Consultant covering audit and licensing for the Health Products Regulation Group of HSA Singapore. If you have any questions during the panel discussion, you have the opportunity to ask them using Pigeonhole. But I'm going to start with a discussion on reliance. And inspection reliance can have huge benefits for the pharmaceutical industry because it helps them avoid duplicate inspections by different regulators at the same site. So very strong benefits for the industry. And the previous speakers have already discussed reliance, but I'm going to ask Ellen, because Ellen's the chair of the PICS subcommittee on harmonization. You've already discussed reliance a little bit, but Ellen, would you like to elaborate on what PICS is doing to enhance inspection reliance around the world?
Yeah, thank you for that questions. So PICS has initiated many critical activity to enhance the GMP harmonization and reliance about the GMP inspections. So as you may know that PICS always continuously revised and promote the international harmonized GMP standards. Like the revision of the NS1 is a very notable achievement. So after this revision, PICS continuously established another new working group. It's a joint implementation working group with the PICS, EMA, and WHO. And the goal this working group is focused to develop consistent interpretation for this new revision and could apply with the equipment approach. And second, the PICS also developed a harmonized inspection systems. And under this inspection, under this program, PICS are running the assessment and reassessment for PICS member authority by the GMP regulatory compliance program. So we will evaluate all the member authority across the PICS member. And for that, we could we could ensure that all the member, they are operation the equipment inspection and license systems to build up our mutual confidence. And I would like to know is that last year PICS published a new strategy, and this new strategy that we have a new goal. Our new goal is that we want to just have one inspection fit for all regulatory. So based on this, PICS now are put a lot of effort to promote the GMP reliance. So we establish a working group on the reliance and try to dip into the challenge we can face and to promote the reliance. And also, we also put a lot of effort to establish a new training approach. This training approach, we call it the PICS PICS Inspection Academia, it's PIA, that we try to harmonize not only the training materials, but also the way how we qualify our inspector. So I think all of this is quite important to ensure that to promote the GMP harmonization and compliance, and to make sure that all the products launched to the market are with the high quality, efficacy, and safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. I'm curious about the US FDA. The US FDA is a member of PICS. Are they participating in the Reliance initiative actively? It's a difficult question, I think.
It's just from the presentation from the Kentaro-san that the US FDA they are different level of the reliance and regulation.
Yeah.
And US FDA they mainly focus on the recognition with the MR8. Yeah, but during the PICS, we could have some close communication channels. We could share the information and information changed.
So they are participating to some extent?
Yep,
Yes,
yep.
okay, that's good to hear. Just another question for Vimal, actually. In relation to your WHO inspections and PICS, is there information sharing between PICS and WHO inspection reports?
Oh, yes. Yeah, so thank you very much, Bob. And I think when you talk about the cooperation between the PICS and the WHO, yes, I think it goes back to 15 years actually, okay, because we have got the WHO is basically the associated partner of the PICS and has been attending the committee meetings, seminars in order to leverage on the work which has been done by the PICS on the GMP inspection and quality system. So we have been working together very well. Sharing of reports are being also done it based on the request from the respective authorities, in particularly from the participating authorities, which we call it in PICS. So if they would like to have a more detailed inspection report, they can definitely contact WHOPQ to request for these kind of reports. In addition to that, as I mentioned early this morning, the inspection reports, we call it WHO PIR, are available on the WHO website, which is again for not only for the procurement agencies, but also for the NRS to tap on and to understand the compliance of that particular manufacturer.
Thanks, Vimal. A question for Sia. I know you are very much involved with the ASEAN GMP inspection group. To what extent are inspection reports from that group shared with PICS and vice versa?
Okay, yeah, thank you, Bob. Within ASEAN, and for those who may not know the acronym ASEAN, is the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, 10 member states in all. Within ASEAN, there is a legally binding ASEAN sectoral MRA on GMP inspection. And what this means is that the 10 ASEAN member states are legally obliged to accept the GMP certificate and inspection reports from what we call ASEAN listed inspection services. Currently, there are 5 ASEAN listed inspection services: Singapore HSA, Malaysia NPRA, Indonesia NADFC, the National Agency for Drug and Food Control, and the Thai and Philippines FDA. And an ASEAN-listed inspection service is simply an inspectorate that operates the PICS framework. So all 10 ASEAN member states will have to legally accept the inspection reports of these 5 ASEAN-listed inspection services. And then outside of ASEAN, I will use Singapore as an example. Singapore accepts the GMP certificate and inspection reports of all PICS participating authorities. And I believe within the 10 member ASEAN nations, this is also the approach. So in summary, I would say that the PICS GMP inspection reliance and the ASEAN sectoral MRA drives reliance within ASEAN. Thank you.
Thanks, Sia. Another question about ASEAN. I know the Philippine FDA recently applied to join PICS. is it likely that other ASEAN countries like Vietnam, Cambodia will also apply?
You're right that the Philippines FDA, the PFDA, has recently made an application to join the PICS. In fact, it was last year. An official application was sent by the Philippines FDA to the PICS Secretariat in Geneva. As some of you may know, the Philippines FDA is an ASEAN-listed inspection service. It was evaluated in 2018 and 2019 by a panel of ASEAN experts, and it was deemed good enough to be an ASEAN-listed inspection service. I would think that being an ASEAN-listed inspection service will help facilitate the PICS accession journey for Philippines. Vietnam, Cambodia, Myanmar, Laos, Brunei, they have all not yet made an application to be an ASEAN-listed inspection service. So I think it will be quite a while before they would become a member of PICS.
Yes.
So the route, the stepping stone is that you become an ASEAN-listed inspection service first, and then it will make it easier to become a PICS member.
Yeah.
So I don't see Cambodia and Vietnam in the near future becoming a member of PICS. Okay.
I'm curious about Vietnam because Vietnam has probably much lower labor costs than even China. I think I was reading somewhere that the labor costs in Vietnam are half that of China. A lot of Chinese manufacturers are actually relocating their factories to Vietnam. So Vietnam could become a very important manufacturing hub in the future. Is there some way maybe we could encourage Vietnam to go down the PICS route? What do you think?
Actually, among the 10 ASEAN member states, next to Indonesia, Vietnam is the biggest ASEAN member state, I think population-wise, and therefore a domestic market of at least 100 million. And what Bob has said is true. A lot of manufacturing operations are moving into Vietnam. So it makes very good sense for Vietnam, or the Drug Administration of Vietnam, to want to move into first being an ASEAN-listed inspection service and then very quickly to become a PICS member. There will be tremendous advantages and benefits for Vietnam. I think what may be lacking is, I don't know whether funding is an issue, and the convincing of the regulatory authority, because you will be subject to scrutiny. So maybe some third party or non-governmental organization may prod the Drug Administration of Vietnam to go along.
Maybe the Gates Foundation could step in and help in some way, Vimal?
Yeah, I think this is, yes. Hello. Okay, I think this is very much possible, okay, provided the respective regulatory authority approach the Global Fund or this Bill Gates Melinda Foundation to request for the capacity building and all, which is very much possible actually. Okay, yeah, but it all depends on the respective donors and funders. Okay, what exactly they are looking for. So yes, yeah, I think taking into account like the number of manufacturing sites are being moved to that part of the world, I think it makes sense actually, okay, to have this kind of support from the Bill Gates Melinda Foundation.
If we move to ATMPs, the GMP requirements for ATMPs, they're very similar between PICS and European Union, but there are some differences. For the EMA requirements for ATMPs, they're very detailed, very descriptive and legally binding, whereas the PICS requirements for ATMPs are more flexible and, should we say, very much a high-level framework. Kentaro-san, could you comment on how regulators are coping with these differences, and is there any plans in the future to try and harmonise them to be more closer?
Thank you, Bob. So PMDA have experienced a few years ago. PMDA had joined a PICS working group for the task of the revise of Annex 2. The Annex 2 is a PICS guideline for the ATMP and biological products. So during this experience, so we have the better understanding of the thinking of procedure of EMA, GMP authorities, and Europe agencies. So in this experience, so I think there is no significant differences between the EMA authorities and our PMDA procedure of the inspection for the ATMP. So this is the honest feeling for me. So if some manufacturing site have a very significant gap between the guideline, between the PICS guideline and the EMA guideline, so it is one of the solution, I think, that PICS participating authorities will approach it to the PICS, because PICS have a various kind of working group. The task of the thinking the global harmonization of the ATMP inspection procedures. That is one of the useful solution, I think.
Thank you. Ginny, do you want to add anything to that?
Yep, this one's working. Well, I guess as I said earlier, we are still in the position of having an Australian-specific code for the biologicals and cells and tissues. So the ATMPs, I guess my only real comment here is our regulatory framework is so different to the EU. And any jurisdiction or regulatory agency such as ourselves, the more flexible, higher level interpretation that the PICS allows us to then develop our own interpretive guidance. So as long as the principles are aligned, that allows us to fit requirements into our framework. So I guess that's the important part for agencies such as ourselves, to have that level of interpretation. We can be aligned, but we don't have to be identical, but those underlying principles must absolutely be shared. Yeah.
Well, stay with the microphone, because I've got another question for you. And it relates to the MRA that Australia, TGA and Canada, Health Canada have signed recently, which is really a mutual recognition allowing I guess, inspection reliance activities, so that you can rely on the inspection reports of their inspections in China, India, etc., and vice versa. Do you think this is a good example that other regulators could follow around the world?
Well, the easy answer to that is yes. And the important point here is Health Canada and the TGA have a very long and well-established collaborative relationship. The existing MRA is such that we automatically accept each other's inspection reports. The sectoral annex and the new MOU that we've put in place to allow those recognition of extra-jurisdictional inspection reports is just, I guess, a level, or shows the maturity of that relationship and collaboration between the two agencies. So we don't yet have any plans or active activities, work happening on any of our other MRAs, pushing it to that level. But of course, that is where we should be. We should definitely be heading. It does take a lot of work. It goes to that level of understanding. And the differences between even though our two regulatory agencies are largely aligned in many instances, there are still some critical differences, as I showed on that slide. So they will be able to use more of our reports than we will be able to use of theirs. So it's again, I keep harping on this theme, we can be aligned, but we are never going to be identical. Yeah.
Thanks, Jenny. If we go to some of the questions coming up on Pigeonhole, the first one is Korea MFDS is a member of PICS. However, it has an extensive list of documents required for site registration. Are there any plans to reduce the requirements to file site registration in Korea? Can any of the panellists answer that question? I can't answer it. I have no idea. Everyone want to have a go?
I believe it's not Korea alone. Perhaps Korea may have a longer list than other regulatory authorities. We have to bear in mind that being a member of PICS is about the manufacturing facility, whereas to get a product on the market, you need more than that. The manufacturing facility, the quality system must be up to mark, and then the safety, quality, and efficacy criteria also has to be complied with. So it is not peculiar to Korea MFDS, but I do not know how much information they need. So it's a question of the list of documents.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ian.
For your information, I'm going to Korea next week to do a PICS reassessment of Korea MFDS, but it is on the manufacturing system. Okay.
Actually, that's a very good point to raise, that PICS does do reassessments of member authorities, which is very important for the member authorities to maintain a high standard of inspection and also inspection reliance. So that's it's a very good thing that PICS does. I'd like to talk a little bit about the pandemic and how regulators coped with the pandemic, because there are a lot of lessons that were learned from the pandemic. Most of the regulators were doing remote or distant inspections because travel was simply not possible. Now that the pandemic is over, I guess the question is, will remote and distant inspections continue from time to time? Maybe Ellen?
Okay, so in Taiwan, our situation is quite well during the COVID-19 pandemic. So we keep our usual work to conduct on-site inspection, our domestic on-site inspection, but for the overseas inspection, we just post. But in general way, even it's not any special issue for the pandemic, for those overseas manufacturers like located in the PICS member country, we did reliance on the inspection report or the information that we could get from the PICS member authorities. So it's a good way. It's kind of the remote assessment or desktop assessment, and also that you know that PICS has established a working group on remote assessment. I think it's in 2022, and I think this workshop is also important, that we will focus on to develop a general approach and some guidance for that it's easier to apply this approach when we need to use this on-site assessment, this remote assessment.
Thanks, Ellen. Jenny, I know you mentioned remote distance inspections a lot in your presentation. These will continue?
Yes, definitely. And for those of you who are not aware, during the pandemic, Australia is a federation of states. We had states making their own decisions as to lockdown, and we had some of the most stringent lockdown requirements in the world. So we were doing remote inspections of Australian sites during the pandemic. So we are definitely we can see how they provide benefit. We don't use them as our first port of call. It's always better to have the person on the site, having that, you know, real life experience with the staff and the manufacturers directly. But there are times when a remote inspection is a really, really useful tool. So we will continue to use it for both domestic and overseas. And hybrid probably is where we're going to spend most of our time. So that will limit the costs associated with travel. And yeah, but there's an upside and a downside, as always. So hybrid for overseas inspections is excellent, but the problem with the remote inspections from overseas is the time differences. So if we need an inspector to be there when the operations are actually running, that normally means if we're doing it remotely, our poor inspectors are doing it at 3 o'clock in the morning, which is less than ideal.
And also a good Wi-Fi connection.
And an excellent, so this is one of the things that we're looking at, and as Ellen mentioned, we do have a working group within the PICS looking at remote and hybrid inspections. One, getting a definition, so we all know that we're talking about the same thing at the same time, and the requirements that we need to have, both as a regulatory agency to support these activities, but also what does the manufacturer need to be able to have to support us doing it. So,
and will PICS publish this as a guideline document?
Yes, yes. So I'm just trying to think what stage it's up to. It's within my subcommittee, so I should know. It's gone out for, it's been cleared by the subcommittee. I believe it's with the participating authorities for review at the moment.
So it'll be published as what, a recommendation or a guidance document? Or,
yes, and an aid memoir will have the two it is.
Okay.
Yes, that's right.
So it'll be very useful for manufacturers to know about that.
Absolutely.
Sia.
I think some of you also may be aware of the ICMRA Collaborative Hybrid Project. It has already started at least a year ago, where several national regulatory authorities are involved, and also 3 to 5 manufacturers are also selected to take part in this collaborative hybrid inspection. So what is happening is there will be a host inspectorate that actually go on site to do the inspection. And then there are participants who, through real-time video conferencing, are also participating. I think the results would be published by ICMRA soon. If not, maybe it is already published. And what may happen is that the outcome may be extended to NRAs around the world. So when this happens, it is possible that hybrid inspection can happen in a very big way. And I'm actually a firm believer and supporter of a hybrid inspection. And I think the future is bright, because most national legislation do allow for different approaches, be it hybrid, be it remote, distant, hybrid, desktop. So I hope a good outcome comes out from this ICMRA initiative. Thank you.
Thanks, Sia. WHO, you are doing some remote hybrid inspections?
Yeah, actually we have done it during the COVID time in order to ensure the continued compliance. And if you ask me, yes, I think it is the way, because we cannot stop the remote or desk assessment, because I think before we start any inspection, we need to do, first of all, some sort of a desktop assessment in order to understand about the site before we perform either on-site or a real-time remote inspection. Now, the thing is that, again, this is where the different inspectorates have got a different views to look at it, but ultimately everybody is talking about a risk-based approach. The site which is having, which can pose a high risk should be in a way inspected on site, actually, okay, based on the type of the products, for example, vaccines or sterile products, as compared to the APIs or non-sterile dosage form, which may have got a less risk as compared to the other dosage forms.
Thanks, Kentaro-san.
Okay. As a PMDA experiences, so during pandemic, we have conducted 10 or 15 remote assessment. So, but that is very hard and difficult to obtain the detailed information, while the very huge amount of resources to set up the IT tool. So currently, I have no plan to conduct a remote inspection from now on. But ICMRA have a plan to the joint hybrid inspection. That is one of the very useful procedures to reduce the resources and enhance the avoid duplication of the inspection. So PMDA would like to join the ICMRA activity.
Thank you, Kentaro-san. We have a question in Pigeonhole, which I think is for Jenny. What are the initiatives to have different health authorities? What are the initiatives to have different health authorities to work together to have the harmonization and reliance? Probably Jenny and Ellen.
Thanks, Bob. Certainly happy to answer that in the first instance. We have many different initiatives. So we're a member of the well, we would call it ICMRA. Apparently that's an Australian thing. We make these things and make them into a word. We also have the relationships developed with the Access Collaborative Group. So that's HSA Singapore, Australia, Swissmedic, I'm going to miss somebody, Health Canada, and now the UK. So we're looking at collaboration and reliance mechanisms within that group. So the Access has a particular role, so you'll notice the similarities between the members of that group. We're all medium-sized, reasonably small population countries. So one of the main drivers for that collaboration is to create an attractive marketing authorisation destination. So big players will market a new product in the US and they'll market it in the EU, not so attractive to bring it to Australia with a population of 25 million. So that collaboration is very important. So we're looking at how we can link GMP inspections with some of the collaboration activities that are happening under our Access partnerships. So we've got Access, we've got ICMRA, we're also doing the things within the PICS in the terms of collaboration, and then the work that we're doing with individuals, the bilaterals with our MRA partners. So we have a whole suite of initiatives that are going on, and it goes again to that importance that we have within Australia to use really good reliance mechanisms to help with that ongoing supply of not just consistent and sustainable supply, but also attracting new and innovative medicines to a relatively small population.
Do you want to add to that, Ellen?
Yeah, I think it's the same. Yeah, it's same that if we're doing this way, that we could leverage the resources from other trusted regulatory authority. Then we could reallocate, refocus our resources for that's really with the medicine was really issued, and also by cooperating this other regulatory authorities could help us also work with the international organization will help us keep in the chase for this regulatory innovation, and it's also will help our industry help our Taiwan medicinal product to be supplied globally.
Thank you, Ellen. Vimal, you can add to that.
I think in addition to what has been said, WHO has been taking a lead on the reliance, recognition, harmonization. We have developed a number of guidelines, but the most important thing, I think since 2018, we have developed a global harmonization, global benchmarking tool. It is called GBT in short. And I think this is one of the things which is basically bringing together many national regulatory authorities under the same system, and it is being basically assessed by WHO using the 9 common functions. So I think in a way it is a very good initiative to talk about how we can leverage on the work which has been done, those who have been assessed using the GBT tools. Thank you.
Thanks, Vimal. Yes, Jenny?
Just one thing that's reasonably small, but perhaps critically important to this audience that I did forget to mention, is that we have very recently started what we're calling the single inspection pilot program. or vice versa, SIP. So that's something that's been born almost outside of those formal relationships I spoke of earlier. So Health Canada, MHRA in the UK and TGA within Australia are looking for sites where we all have a mutual interest and an intention to inspect, and then only sending one team. So we conducted the first one perhaps at the beginning of this year. The UK went on behalf of both of the other agencies, and the TGA has just done an inspection of a site to cover Health Canada. So that is another way in which like-minded agencies experiencing the same difficulties, trying to get harmonisation and streamlining. I think it was, I'm not sure who mentioned it earlier, but one of the big things we're finding with is the pure logistics. Finding the site, assessing the convergence or divergence of the products that are being made or the relevant to each agency. The last one we've done, the fit was beautiful because I think we had 100 plus products coming to Australia and 20 going to Health Canada, and so that was great. But if there's a great divergence in the products going to each jurisdiction, then it increases the inspection. So working out what is going to be beneficial for the extra effort putting into it is an interesting situation. But we need to do these as a pilot to determine the most efficient way to do it.
And you mentioned finding the site. I think in countries like India, geolocation is very important.
Yes, are we talking about the same site? Step one.
Yeah,
Indeed.
thank you.
Yep.
Stay with the microphone, Jenny, because this next one's for you. With the sovereignty of decision in Australia, are there instances wherein those who applied had failed, but their products have a high potential for use in Australia? Does the government work with the applicant to pass?
I think I'm going to have to answer that with my previous hat on in marketing authorisation assessment, because we are talking about a product here. Because as I said earlier, we don't approve or license an overseas manufacturing site. What we're looking at is the product. So if there are instances where there's been an application to register or approve a product within Australia, there are always, pragmatically, we all know this, there are always times through that evaluation process where everybody knows which way it's going to go. Does the government work with that company? Not so much, no. So what we're talking about there is, in fact, the sovereign decision maker within the TGA. So there's a delegated power from the head of our agency, the Department of Health, who is a public servant, not a government employee per se, as a political one, the head of the Department of Health. So a delegate within the TGA holds that power. They will make a decision purely based on the information that's in front of them. Now, there are situations where we have new mechanisms, such as the provisional pathways, where partial dossiers or priority and provisional, where we can look at things, and that's where we kind of work with an applicant as they go along for a product that meets a critical need. So that's the instance that we would work closely with things. But if the information isn't there, then the decision is we can't approve.
Thanks, Jenny. We have 5 minutes to go. If there's any questions that the audience want to ask from the floor, it's open for questioning from the floor. In the meantime, I'd just like to ask one question to Vimal. You mentioned in your presentation this rotational fellowship program for inspectors. And really is open to inspectors, I guess, from third world countries to join WHO inspectors as a learning process. I'm very interested in this because I'm helping the regulatory authorities of countries like Ethiopia, Pakistan, Jordan. The inspectors from those countries really need that sort of help. So is this possible to participate in WHO inspections in this way?
Yeah, thank you very much, Bob. Okay, so talking about the rotational fellowship, yeah, this has been started just before the COVID, and it has been put on hold during the COVID time. Okay, the objective is basically to build the capacity of the NRAs, or in particularly their inspectors. But I think WHO is mainly looking for those countries which are from the low income, middle income countries, LMICs. And in addition to participating in this particular program, WHO is also inviting the national inspectors to observe the inspection again as part of the capacity building. So yes, I think if you or any of the particular agency is interested or they wanted to send their inspectors, definitely they can contact the WHO pre-qualification and they can make a request. Again, it all boils down back to the donors, because I think donors are not giving money for each and every country. They have identified the priorities. So there are few countries which are on the high priority list, and that is where actually the support is being given to those countries.
Thanks, Vimal. There's a question that's come up on Pigeonhole relating to Japan and Taiwan. Japan and Taiwan require registration of foreign sites, FMA and PMF. Will this be reviewed as we gain more momentum on Reliance? Ellen or Kentaro-san?
Yeah, I could go first. Yes, just as I mentioned that for the overseas manufacturer, if it's located in Taiwan, it's located in PIC member country, we could use the desktop inspection instead of on-site inspection. And so far, they are I think it's 95% of this overseas manufacturer registered in Taiwan are located in PIC's member country. And after that, we got more information from the PIC experience from the mutual conference we gained from this platform. We did regularly review our approach, our desktop inspection requirement to see is any document that we could just forget it's okay, that we could have another way to take care of this issue. So also every year we will hold a meeting with those pharmaceutical agencies in Taiwan to discuss if they any issue about this prepare for this PMF requirement. Yeah, so yes, we will review and always so try to reduce this requirement. But at the minimum, we will still request those overseas manufacturers site located in PIC country to submit the minimum information to let us have the basic information and understand your current status. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Ellen. Kentaro-san?
So PMDA is the inspectorate, MHLW is government office, so it is very difficult for me to say some comments. So I would like to create a very useful reliance with Taiwan FDA in the aspect of the technical field of the GMP. This is my comment.
Thank you very much. We have run out of time, but I just want to ask one last question of Sia. And this relates to the ASEAN MRA on GMP. I know at the moment it does not cover APIs or biologicals. Is this likely to change in the future?
Yes. Currently, the ASEAN MRA only covers pharmaceutical products in finished dosage forms. This means that APIs and biopharmaceuticals are out of the scope. Discussions have been going on, and it is very likely that this year, approval will be granted to amend the scope to include APIs as well as biopharmaceuticals. And a grace period of 5 years will be given. So if approval is given this year, then in 2029, it will come into operation. And what is likely to happen, there will be a very simple framework. ASEAN LIS, Listed Inspection Service, which are already a PICS member, will have the full scope, including APIs and biopharmaceuticals, as well as finished dosage forms. Whereas ASEAN member states that are not members of PICS, then they will have to undergo an assessment by a panel of experts. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sia. That brings us to the end of this panel discussion, which I think you'll agree with me. It was very informative, and we had some very expert regulators on the panel. So I'd like you to join with me and thank the panelists for their contribution.